If you've been hearing about fresh milled flour and wondering, is this actually healthier? And maybe even more importantly, is it worth the extra time for my family? This video is for you. I remember asking those same questions. I love baking from scratch and I was already making sourdough, but I wasn't sure if milling my own flour would make a difference or if it would just add one more thing to my kitchen. In this video, we're going to talk about what actually changes when you switch from all-purpose flour to freshly milled whole grains, what the nutritional differences are, and how to decide if this shift makes sense for your home. Okay, so let's start with what actually happens to flour once it's milled. If you've been hearing about fresh milled flour and wondering, is this actually healthier? And maybe even more importantly, is it really worth the extra effort for my family? This video is for you. I remember asking the same questions. I love baking from scratch and I was already making sourdough, but I wasn't sure if milling my own flour would truly make a difference or if it would just add one more thing to my kitchen. In this video, we're going to talk about what actually changes when you switch from all-purpose flour to freshly milled whole grain, what the nutritional differences really are, and how to decide if this shift makes sense for your home. So the biggest difference is that fresh milled flour is a whole food and all-purpose flour is not. When you mill wheat at home, you're using the entire grain, the bran, the germ, the endosperm. Nothing's removed. Nothing is stripped away. You're getting the grain exactly as it is when it's grown. All-purpose flour is different. In order to increase shelf life, the bran and the germ are actually removed during the processing. Well, why? Because the germ contains natural oils, and those oils can get rancid over time. So in order for flour to sit on the grocery store shelves for months and sometimes longer, those parts have to be taken out. But here's the thing. The bran and the germ are where most of the nutrients live. Fiber, B vitamins, vitamin E, minerals like magnesium and iron, natural oils, all of that is concentrated in the parts that are actually removed. So what's left behind is primarily the starchy endosperm. That's why you'll see the word enriched on bags of all-purpose flour. Enriched means that certain synthetic or isolated nutrients are added back in after processing. It's not the same as the original whole grain structure. Fresh milled flour doesn't need to be enriched because actually nothing was removed in the first place. And this is where it becomes more than just baking. Whole grains are one of the most nutrient-dense foods that God created. They were designed complete, balanced, nourishing, all of that. When we use the whole grain, freshly milled, we're just honoring God's design in that. So again, it isn't about fear, it's just about understanding the difference. Fresh milled flour is food in its most complete form. All-purpose flour is a refined product that's designed for shelf stability, and those are not the same thing. So what actually changes nutritionally when you start using fresh milled flour? Well, when you mill your wheat fresh and you use the entire grain, you're actually getting a complete package of nutrients that work together the way that they were designed to. Whole grains naturally contain things like fiber that supports our digestion and blood sugar balance. There's B vitamins that help convert food into energy. Vitamin E from the germ, which actually acts as an antioxidant. There's minerals like magnesium, iron, zinc, and selenium. When flour is refined into all-purpose flour, most of the fiber and many of the naturally occurring vitamins and minerals are significantly reduced because of the bran and germ that have been removed from it. So when you use fresh milled flour, none of that's been stripped away. So you're not just adding fiber back in, you're keeping the whole structure of the grain intact. And the structure actually matters. Fiber slows digestion. It helps prevent rapid blood sugar spikes that we actually know that refined flours are known for. The presence of the natural fats and nutrients that are in the germ help your body to absorb and utilize actually what you're eating more effectively. So another thing that families may notice is that when you eat these fresh milled products that you stay fuller longer. Because bread made with fresh milled whole grain flour tends to be more filling. It satisfies differently than just regular flour. You're not just eating starch. You're actually eating a nutrient-dense food. And again, this isn't about like demonizing store-bought flour. It's about understanding that there's a real nutritional difference between a refined product and a freshly milled whole food. Whole grains are one of the most nutrient-dense plant foods that are available to us. And so when we use them in complete form, we're actually choosing nourishment over convenience. And for many women, that shift really starts to feel more meaningful. So after hearing all that, the question really becomes, is it actually worth it? Because yes, milling your own flour does take a little more intention. You have to source the grain, which I talk about in another video that I'll link below. You have to mill it before baking. It's not quite as instant as just grabbing a bag off the shelf. But actually, here's what I found. When something nourishes your family more deeply, it connects you to food more intentionally. And it rarely feels that time was wasted. Milling your own flour takes just a few minutes, that's it. A few minutes of milling your whole wheat berries into fresh flour that still contains every part of the grain. For me, it really shifted just from making bread to actually nourishing my family. And it actually gave me a couple of things. One, it gave me more confidence when we were eating, more connection to like traditional skills from the past, more control over the ingredients that I'm giving my family, and honestly, more satisfaction in the kitchen. And here's something important that you need to know. You do not have to change everything overnight. You can actually just start with one loaf a week, one recipe, just one small shift. For many families, the effort is minimal compared to like the long-term benefits of consistently eating whole, freshly milled grains. Is it required? No. Is it meaningful? Absolutely. So if you're already baking sourdough or you're cooking from scratch, milling your own flour is just oftentimes the next natural step. Not because you have to, but because you want your effort really to go as far as possible. And when you look at it that way, it stops feeling like extra work and really starts feeling like more alignment. So I really want to say this to clarify a couple of things. You do not have to do this perfectly. You don't need a fancy pantry. You don't have to overhaul your entire kitchen. You don't need to replace every recipe overnight. Really, what you need to do is just start with a few simple grains, mill your own flour into a couple of different recipes. The main thing is you just need to get started. So, is fresh milled flour really healthier? In short, yes. It's fresher, it's more complete, it's more aligned with traditional baking. But more importantly, it gives you ownership over what you're already feeding your family. So if you're ready to explore this without feeling overwhelmed, I want you to grab my free freshly milled flour quick start guide below. It's a simple 5-day email series that walks you through exactly what you need, how to store flour, and how to start baking with confidence. And if you're wondering about some of the more practical questions like where do I buy wheat berries, how do I store them, be sure to watch this video next, and it gives you all the details and actually a peek into my semi-strange place that I store them.